Skipping dinner again, doctor? The voice came from behind the steel counter, low and steady, just as Dr. Maya Whitfield pushed through the cafeteria doors, her white coat still marked with iodine. It was 11:15 at night. The dining hall of Cedar Grove General Hospital sat empty. Chairs were stacked upside down on the tables like sleeping animals, and the fluorescent lights buzzed with that particular hum that only shows up once everyone else has gone home. "I didn't have time," she said, not looking at him, digging through her pocket for change for the vending machine. "You never have time." Marcus Doyle stepped out from the back of the kitchen, his hands still damp from a dish towel, sleeves rolled to the elbow, a crease between his eyebrows that struck Maya in that moment as more of a quiet accusation than a question. "Sit down." "I didn't come to sit, I came for coffee. Coffee at this hour is poison, and you know that better than I do." "I'm a doctor." Marcus set both hands on the counter. "Sit down, Dr. Whitfield. 5 minutes." Maya finally looked up. She had seen him behind that counter 100 times, but never quite like this, planted there, as if the whole world could fit inside the 5 minutes he was asking for. His hands were worn from work, and there was a calm about him that didn't match the hour. "I have a patient in observation," she said. "You had a patient 3 hours ago. You checked on him 20 minutes ago. I watched you leave the floor." Marcus bent down behind the counter and came back up with a plate covered by another plate still warm, and slid it slowly across the steel until it stopped in front of the empty stool. "Rice pulled chicken and whatever was left from the lunch rush. It's not much, but it's real food, and it didn't come out of a machine." Maya stared at the plate like it was something from another planet. "How do you know what time I checked on my patient?" "Because I've spent 6 months watching you walk through that door at 11 o'clock, with a face that says you haven't eaten since breakfast, buying a coffee you never drink." Marcus nudged the plate another inch forward. "Eat. I can see you shaking." And it was true, the hand holding her coins trembled faintly, the kind of low blood sugar tremor she diagnosed in other people 10 times a day, without ever noticing she carried it herself. Maya closed her fist to hide it. "I'm not hungry, doctor." Marcus lowered his voice another notch. "I'm not going home until you eat. And it's 11 and I'm back in at 6, so you can sit down and eat in 5 minutes, or the two of us can stand here arguing until sunrise. Your call. That's what you went to school for." A silence settled. The hum of the lights, a cart rolling somewhere down another hallway. Maya looked at the plate. She looked at the stubborn man in the apron, and something inside her, something that had been cinched tight for years like a tourniquet, gave just a millimeter. She sat. 5 minutes, she warned, pointing her fork at him. "However many you want." Marcus leaned against the wall, crossed his arms, and watched her with the quiet satisfaction of a man who'd finally won a long game. "But you're finishing all of it." The first bite caught her off guard. It was warm, it had salt, it tasted like food made by someone who'd thought about the person who was going to eat it. Maya had been swallowing whatever she could grab standing up in hallways for so long that she'd forgotten food could taste like that. A pause. She chewed slowly, felt her shoulders drop an inch without asking permission. "See," Marcus said, "don't say anything." "I didn't say anything. You were thinking it loudly." He let out a short laugh through his nose. "Is it good?" he asked anyway. "It's fine," she said, mouthful. "Fine. I won't get a swelled head over fine. It already swelled." Marcus tipped his chin at the plate. "The day an ER doctor who skips dinner tells me my rice is fine, I'm taking that as a national honor." Maya swallowed and looked at him, half offended, half amused. "Do you talk this much to the morning shift nurses too?" "With you, I'm just warming up." He leaned back against the wall. "You walk in, you don't say hello, you buy a coffee, you don't drink, and you leave. I've spent months wanting to know what your voice sounds like when it's not giving orders. And how does it sound?" "Tired," he said without any cruelty. "You sound tired, doctor." She looked down at her plate. The comment landed harder than she expected, because it was exact, and because no one had said it to her in years. "Eat," Marcus said, softening when he saw her go still. "I didn't say it to choke you up. I said it so you'd finish. Do you talk to all your customers like this?" You're not my customer. You never paid me. I can pay you. I never charged you. Why not? Marcus took his time answering. Because food you pay for feeds your wallet. Food that's given feeds something else. He picked up the empty cup. And you, doctor, haven't eaten from that something else in a long time. It shows. It shows that nobody's looking after you. Forgive me for saying it, but it shows. Maya set down her fork. That's the first time anyone said something like that to me in years. Then it's a good thing you came down for your coffee you don't drink. Maya ate in silence, and for the first time in she didn't know how many weeks, nobody asked her for a single thing for 5 whole minutes. No patient, no resident, no pager buzzing on her hip. Just the plate, the fork, and the man watching her eat, like it was the most important thing happening in the entire hospital that night. When she finished, she pushed the empty plate back to him. Thank you, she said, and the word came out rough, rusted from disuse on her own behalf. Tomorrow, 11 o'clock, Marcus answered, taking the plate. And don't make me wait, because you already know I will. Maya stood, straightened her coat, and walked to the door. In the doorway, she stopped without turning around. Why, she asked. Why does it matter to you whether I eat or not? Marcus took a while to answer. When he did, his voice had lost the teasing. Because once I didn't push hard enough, and I've regretted it ever since. She heard the water turn on at the sink. Good night, doctor. Rest if they let you. Maya walked out into the cold hallway. She didn't fully understand what he'd meant, but that night she fell asleep without the hollow in her stomach she'd learned to mistake for ordinary hunger. Cedar Grove General never slept, and neither did Dr. Maya Whitfield. At 33, she was the head of the emergency department with the fastest response time on the floor and the worst habit in the building, taking absolutely no care of herself. She'd come from a small town in West Virginia on a scholarship with one good pair of shoes, and she'd been running ever since. Her mother had died in a waiting room, waiting for a doctor who never made it to her in time. And that grief had shaped her into what she'd become. The physician who always arrived on time, who never left anyone waiting in a hallway. The problem was, in order to arrive on time for everyone else, she'd stopped arriving for herself. Whitfield Bed 4 just crashed, a nurse shouted at her that same week, and Maya was already running before the sentence finished. That day ran 18 hours. 2 codes in open fracture, a child in respiratory distress. She ate half a sandwich at 3 in the afternoon. At 9 that night, Dr. Grant Alcorn caught her in the hallway with that smile of his that never quite managed to look kind. Whitfield, I need you to cover Torres' shift Thursday. I'm coming off a 24-hour shift Thursday, Alcorn. I'm off Friday. Friday you have outpatient clinic. You scheduled it. Alcorn shrugged, hands in the pockets of his spotless coat. He was the type who never had a stain on his coat. You're the best I've got in the ER. If you don't cover it, the shift falls apart. Do you want the shift to fall apart? He let the question hang there like a trap. I thought you cared about the patients. I do care about the patients, Alcorn. That's exactly why I don't want to be treating them running on no sleep. Nobody dies from lack of sleep, Whitfield. Don't be dramatic. Alcorn smiled patient like he was explaining something obvious to a child. When I was a resident, I pulled 48 hours straight, and here I am. When you were a resident, there were half as many patients and twice as many doctors. Details, he waved the argument away. Look, I can put it in writing and send it to administration. Dr. Whitfield refuses to cover a critical shift, or we can work it out between colleagues. Which do you prefer? There it was, the exact nerve he knew went straight through her. He'd spent 2 years using that word patience as leverage to wring more out of her, as if resting were the same as abandoning them. I'll cover it, Maya said, because she always did. Knew I could count on you. Alcorn patted her shoulder and walked off whistling softly. That pat weighed on her more than the 18 hours had. Her back ached, her feet ached, and something in her chest ached that no anatomy textbook had ever named. At 11:15, almost without deciding to, her feet carried her to the cafeteria. Marcus was there, like he'd been waiting. There was already a covered plate on the counter. You're late, he said. I had a day. Every day is that day for you. He slid the plate over. Sit. This time she didn't argue as much. She sat, uncovered the plate barbecue chicken warm rolls wrapped in a napkin to keep them from cooling, and ate while Marcus scrubbed pots with his back to her, leaving her the silence he somehow knew she needed. Alcorn again, he asked without turning around. Maya looked up, surprised. How do you know about Alcorn, doctor? I feed this whole hospital, I hear everything. Marcus shut off the faucet and turned, drying his hands. Other day he came down here, ordered a coffee, and walked off without paying. A man who won't pay for a $2 coffee is a man who thinks the whole world owes him. Watch out for men like that. He walked off without paying. Every single day, I keep track. Marcus shrugged. And I know how to spot a man who builds his career on other people's exhaustion. I've seen them in every kitchen I've ever worked. They're never the ones washing the dishes. She let out a tired laugh. He's my boss. He's a bully with a medical degree. Marcus leaned on the counter. How many hours have you been awake? I don't count. Maya did the math reluctantly, and the answer made her dizzy. She reached for another bite instead. Not your business how much I sleep. You're right, it isn't. Marcus nodded, serious. I'm just the guy who keeps your plate warm. But I'm going to say one thing, doctor, and then I'll drop it. A person doesn't break all at once. They break slowly, one shift at a time, and by the time they notice, there's nobody left to put them back together. I've seen it. He looked down at the towel in his hands. I saw it up close. That's why I push. Push who? Someone. He closed off a little. Different story for a different day. You want me to tell you about Alcorn, but you won't tell me anything. I feed you. I never signed up for a confessional. But he said it with a half smile, no edge to it. Besides, you haven't told me anything either. I don't know where you're from. I don't know why you became a doctor. I don't know why you punish yourself like this. We're even then, she said almost without meaning to. I'm from West Virginia, a town that doesn't show up on the map. What brought you all the way out here? Maya chewed slowly, weighing how much to say. My mom died waiting for a doctor who never showed. In a waiting room just like the one upstairs. She set down her fork. I wanted to be the doctor who does show up. Marcus watched her for a few seconds, something shifting in his face. That's why you run so hard, he said, more to himself than to her. That's why I run so hard. You push pretty hard for a cook, she said afterward, trying to reclaim some ground. And you put up with a lot for someone who's supposed to be human. He held her gaze. Eat. Maya ate, and while she did, she found herself studying him, his hands, the crease between his brows, the way he arranged the kitchen like it was a kind of prayer. There was an old sadness in Marcus, carefully kept, that only surfaced when he thought she wasn't looking. Who did you lose? She asked suddenly, gently. You said once you didn't push hard enough. Who? Marcus went still. The towel stopped moving in his hands. That's not a first dinner question, doctor. You asked me how many hours I sleep. That's different. Why is it different? Because your problem gets fixed with a plate of food. Marcus hung up the towel. Mine doesn't get fixed with anything. It's late. You ate. Go home and sleep. It wasn't a rejection so much as a door closed carefully, the kind you close because what's behind it still hurts. Maya understood because she had a few doors just like it herself. She stood, and at the doorway she paused. Tomorrow 11, she said, handing him back his own words. For the first time she saw Marcus smile for real. Not with his mouth, with his eyes. I'll be here, he answered. And like that, it became a habit, and habits are the quietest way two people start belonging to each other. Every night at 11:15, Maya pushed through the cafeteria doors, and there was the plate Marcus had kept for her, covered, warm, on the same stool. Some nights, she didn't make it down until 1 in the morning, when the shift turned brutal, but the plate waited under a clean towel to hold the heat, and he stayed in the kitchen puttering until he heard her come in, even though he had to be back at 6. It isn't normal you staying this late, Maya told him one night well into that first week. You should go home. My house is empty. The kitchen isn't. Marcus shrugged it off. I've got work here. Inventory. Somebody's got to count the flour. Flour doesn't get counted at 1 in the morning. What do you know about flour? I know it doesn't get counted at 1 in the morning. Marcus set the plate in front of her and didn't argue that part. You know how to cook, doctor. I know how to boil water. Sometimes. Lord have mercy. Marcus crossed himself, joking. How do you survive at your own house? I don't survive at my house. I survive here. Maya picked at her food. At home, I only sleep when they let me. The kitchen's basically storage. That's a crime. Marcus shook his head, genuinely scandalized. A kitchen used for storage? That's like using an operating room as a closet. It's not the same thing. It's exactly the same thing. He leaned on the counter. One of these days, I'm going to teach you to make something even just decent eggs so you don't have to depend on me. And if I don't want to stop depending on you? She said it without thinking, and as soon as it left her mouth, they both went still. Maya looked down at her plate, ears warm. Marcus took a long time to answer. Then I won't teach you, he said finally, very quiet, and went back to the kitchen before she could see his face. She didn't answer, but she noticed that he remembered things, that she hated cilantro, that spicy food didn't sit right after a long shift, that Tuesdays she came down more worn out because Tuesdays meant meetings with Alcorn. One night, tired of waiting for her food to warm up, Maya walked around the counter and into the kitchen. Teach me then, she said. The decent eggs thing. Depend on you, huh? I changed my mind. I want to know how to make at least one thing that doesn't come out of a box. All right. Marcus handed her a pan, unable to hide how pleased he looked. Rule number 1, the pan heats up before anything else goes in it, like you with your patients. Never walk in cold. And rule number 2, don't touch it too much. People ruin eggs by moving them around too much. Sometimes you have to let things set on their own. That sounded like a life lesson too. Everything in a kitchen is a life lesson, doctor. That's why I stuck with it. He guided her hand on the pan handle. Slow. This isn't an emergency. Everything in my life is an emergency. Not here. He lowered his voice. Here, you're allowed to go slow. I'm giving permission. The eggs came out burned. She laughed so hard she cried, and he ate them anyway, insisting they were perfect, and neither of them noticed what time it had gotten. The nights filled up with a conversation that grew on its own the way dough rises when you let it rest. Guess my day, he'd say some nights, sliding the plate over. How am I supposed to guess your day? By what I cooked you. Today I put in chili peppers. That means I saw you walk in fighting mad and figured you needed waking up. I spent 9 hours in surgery. Then I got it right. Marcus poured her water. When I see you tired but okay, I give you something with a strong flavor. When I see you sad, I give you something soft, the kind that tastes like Sunday dinner at home. Nobody thinks this much about what I eat. I do. It's my only talent, doctor. Let me have it. And what would you cook for Alcorn? Nothing. Marcus didn't hesitate. I'd let that man go hungry on purpose. Maybe then he'd learn what it feels like. She laughed with her mouth full, and he watched her laugh like a man watching rain after a long drought. You should laugh more, Marcus said. I don't have time. Then I'll make you time. That's part of my job too, even if nobody's paying me for it. And what's your actual job? Because it seems like nobody around here cooks and everybody just talks. I cook for 300 people a day. Doctor and I still find time to get lectured by you. You're my specialty dish. High maintenance. And what am I made of? Pure stubbornness, Marcus said, pretending to think it over, and not enough sleep. Tough to stew, but once it finally softens, it's worth it. That sounded like flirting. It sounded like a diagnosis. She held his gaze a beat too long. Eat your food, doctor. Now you're lecturing me again. Never stopped. One Thursday, she came in at 12:30, eyes swollen from crying she'd swallowed down in the staff bathroom. She'd lost a patient, a man in his 60s, a heart attack. She'd done everything right and lost him anyway. It happened sometimes. It never stopped hurting. She sat down in front of the plate without uncovering it, stared at the towel. I'm not hungry tonight, she said, and the last word came out broken. Marcus didn't tell her to eat. He didn't say anything. He came out from the kitchen, pulled the next stool over, and sat beside her, close, but not touching. "What was his name?" he asked. Maya blinked. "What? The one you lost today. What was his name?" Her eyes filled. Nobody ever asked her that. They asked what protocol she'd followed, whether there was anything to report. His name. Nobody ever asks his name. "Mr. Robert," she whispered. "Mr. Robert Callahan. He had a granddaughter who used to bring him drawings." Marcus nodded slowly, like he was tucking the name away somewhere safe. "You did everything that could be done for Mr. Callahan, Doctor. I know because you always do everything you can. Sometimes the body just gives out, and that's not on you. That's on life, which is a rotten thing sometimes." Maya folded over the counter and finally cried, really cried, the ugly, full-body kind of crying a person hides away for years. Marcus didn't hug her, didn't shush her. He just set one warm hand between her shoulder blades and let her cry it out, steady as a wall, until it passed. When she lifted her face, her eyes were red, but something in them was cleaner. "Your food's gone cold," she said with a wet laugh. "I'll warm it up." Marcus stood. "And you're eating tonight even if it's 3 spoonfuls. For Mr. Callahan, who I bet wouldn't want the doctor who fought for him going to bed on an empty stomach." She ate. 3 spoonfuls turned into the whole plate while Marcus, trying to distract her, told her nonsense stories. "First day I ever worked in a kitchen, I dropped a wedding cake on the floor." "You're joking. Whole thing. 3 tears. The bride cried harder than you did tonight." Marcus smiled. "You know what I did? Scooped up what could be salvaged, plated it in bowls, and told everyone it was deconstructed dessert. They ate it happy." "That's a lie. That's called surviving, Doctor. Sometimes the plate falls, and you serve it a different way. You don't throw it out." He looked at her. "You fell a little today. Tomorrow we serve you a different way." Maya laughed, throat still tight from crying, and understood that this metal stool in this ugly fluorescent cafeteria had become the one place in the world where she was allowed not to be strong. "Marcus," she said before leaving. "Thanks for asking his name." He went still a moment, towel hanging from his hand. "Names matter, Doctor. The day we stop saying them, we've lost everything." He looked down. "Now go on. I want to see Les Pale tomorrow." The night Marcus finally opened up wasn't at 11. It was 3 in the morning. It had been a brutal shift. When Maya finally pushed through the cafeteria doors, she expected to find it dark, but there was a light on in the kitchen. Marcus, sitting on a stool with a cup of coffee between his hands, staring at nothing. "You stayed," she said, surprised. "I didn't think you'd still be here." He straightened up. "I was about to toss the plate, but then I figured if I tossed it and you showed up, you'd go without dinner. And you know me by now. It's 3 in the morning, Marcus. You're back at 6. I didn't stay awake for a plate of food. I stayed awake for you," he said, and then seemed to regret how plainly it had come out. He stood too fast. "I'll heat it up." Maya stopped him with a hand on his arm. It was the first time she'd touched him. "Sit down," she said, using his own words from the first night. 5 minutes. Drink your coffee with me and tell me who you lost. I've been eating your cooking for weeks, and you won't let me pay you back, not even with a conversation." Marcus looked at her a long moment, then sat the cup on the steel table and talked. "My sister," he said, "Michelle, 4 years younger than me. I basically raised her because our mom worked doubles and our dad wasn't around." He turned the cup slowly between his hands. "Michelle was a nurse here, actually, different floor, and she was just like you, the kind who doesn't eat, who stays late, who carries the whole world on her back and won't let anybody carry her." Maya felt a chill climb up her arms. "I used to tell her Marcus went on. I'd say, 'Michelle, eat, sleep, quit being so stubborn.' And she'd laugh and say, 'Oh, Marcus, don't be dramatic, I'm fine.' And I believed her because it was easier than fighting with her." He swallowed. One day she collapsed on her shift. Something had torn loose inside her, something that could have been caught months earlier if she'd ever stopped to take care of herself. If somebody had made her stop. "I could have pushed harder. I didn't push hard enough, and I lost her in 3 days." The kitchen sat heavy with quiet. That's why you push a stranger, Maya said very softly. At first, yes. Marcus lifted his eyes and they caught the yellow kitchen light. First time I saw you walk through that door with that same starved look on your face, I saw my sister. I nearly went down right there, and I told myself, not this one. This one I catch in time. He lowered his voice. But it isn't about Michelle anymore, Doctor. Hasn't been for weeks. Now it's about you. Just you. Maya didn't know what to do with that. She'd been trained for every emergency except a man telling her at 3 in the morning that her stubbornness had a name and the name was hers. Marcus stood. You don't have to say anything. I'll heat your plate. Eat. I already said too much and you already knew anyway. But Maya didn't let him get to the stove. She stood too, and in the narrow kitchen they ended up closer than either of them had allowed before. How long? She asked. 6 years, he said. This May makes 6. And ever since you keep a plate for strangers, for the ones who remind you of her. Marcus shrugged. Not many. You're the first in a long while. Most don't let me. They laugh, say I'm being ridiculous, take the coffee and go like you did that first week. He looked at her. You came back. That was the strange part. I came back because I was hungry. You came back because nobody else was asking if you'd eaten. Marcus said it plainly, no pride in it, and it works both ways. I come back to this kitchen every night for the same reason, because nobody's waiting for me out there, and here at least I've got somebody to keep a plate for. Maya stayed quiet because he'd just described her own loneliness back to her in his own words. We're a mess, the two of us, she said finally. A well-fed mess, thanks to me. She laughed, and he laughed with her, and for a moment the weight of the kitchen didn't feel so heavy. Michelle was lucky to have you, she said after softer. Even if you don't believe that. Lucky somebody loved her enough to fight with her over a plate of food. She reached up and carefully touched the crease between his eyebrows, the one she knew by heart now. Stop carrying that alone. I know a thing or two about guilt that doesn't go away either. They stood there a moment, two broken people from different directions who had, without meaning to, found the piece missing from the other. Then Maya stepped back, cheeks warm. Warm up my plate, she said, trying to lighten it. And this time you're eating half of it with me. I'm not letting you have dinner alone at 3 in the morning like some kind of ghost. Marcus laughed and it cleared something off his face. As you wish, Doctor. They shared the plate for the first time and talked until the kitchen clock read nearly 4. What was she like? Maya asked. Michelle? Unbearable, Marcus grinned, mouth full. Bossy like you, thought she owned the world. When money was tight, she'd split the food and always take less for herself so I'd get more. I'd call her out on it and she'd say she was on a diet. His smile faded slowly. She was never on a diet. She just didn't like being watched. Just like you. I'm not bossy. Doctor, tonight you gave me 3 orders before you'd even sit down. That's not bossy. That's being right. Fast. Marcus laughed a real laugh that bounced off the steel walls. Right fast? I'm stealing that. Charge me for it, she said. You fed me 30 nights running on that one line. You haven't even charged me for the rice. You're not paying me anything. That's not what this is. Marcus set down his fork and looked at her, suddenly serious. I don't keep your plate so you'll pay me back. Get that straight. You don't owe me anything for me caring whether you eat. Nobody does something for nothing, Marcus. Michelle did. He gathered the plates. I learned it from her. People who really love you don't keep score, Doctor. Alcorn keeps score. We don't. Maya sat with that a moment. My mom didn't keep score either, she said, and it was the first time in years she'd talked about her mother with anyone. She cleaned houses to put me through school, and when she got sick, she never told me so it wouldn't distract me from my exams. She died in that waiting room, without ever telling me how bad it had gotten. Marcus sat back down slower this time. That's why you won't let anybody take care of you. Because nobody ever took care of her. Maya blinked. She'd never put it in those words before. I don't know. Maybe. She looked down. It feels like if I stop, if I let myself be taken care of, I'm betraying her. Like I don't get what she never had. Your mother cleaned other people's houses so you'd have a better life, not so you'd have the same lonely one. Marcus said it with a gentle firmness. Letting yourself be cared for isn't betraying her, Maya. It's exactly what she would have wanted to see somebody keeping her daughter's plate warm. Maya's eyes filled again in a kitchen that had already seen her cry too many times. You're too wise for a cook, and you're too stubborn for a doctor. He handed her a napkin. Don't cry, you'll salt your dinner. Neither of them said what they were thinking, because some things get ruined if you name them too soon. But walking out into the hallway, Maya realized she was smiling to herself like a fool at 4 in the morning. Alcorn noticed the change before either of them did, and men like Alcorn hate anything they can't control. It happened on a Tuesday, at the staff meeting. Maya showed up rested for the first time in months. She'd slept 6 hours straight, an absolute luxury, and something in her face must have given her away because Alcorn looked at her with that cold curiosity of his, like a cat noticing a shift in its territory. You look different, Whitfield, he said in front of everyone. Almost rested. Almost happy. He smiled without any warmth to it. Hope you're not slowing down because I need you covering the end-of-month shifts. I already have 4 shifts this month. Alcorn. That's too many. That's what there is. Alcorn set his papers on the table. Funny thing I heard, by the way, that the head of the ER goes down to the cafeteria every night for dinner with the cook. He said it slowly, savoring it for the room. Sweet. But be careful, Whitfield. Wouldn't look good for a doctor at your level to be confusing the break room with something else. People talk, and your reputation is the one thing you'll have left once the exhaustion catches up to you. The room went uncomfortably quiet. Maya felt her face burn, not with shame, but with fury. What I do on my own time is my business, she said, voice steady. Everything that happens in my department is my business. Alcorn looked at her straight on. Cover the shifts, Whitfield, and stop wasting time in the cafeteria. You're meant for bigger things, like covering the shifts everybody else is too lazy to split. A murmur went through the room. Alcorn's eyes narrowed. He wasn't used to her talking back. Watch your tone, Whitfield. I sign off on promotions in this department. That chief position you work so hard for, I renew it every year. He smiled again. Be a shame if you forgot who's in charge playing house with the guy who runs the cafeteria. Leave him out of this. I didn't bring him into anything. You're the one who goes down there. Alcorn gathered his papers. Meeting's over, Whitfield. End-of-month shifts are yours. And do yourself a favor. Raise the bar on your company. He stood and walked out, and the room emptied behind him in a thick silence, everyone avoiding her eyes. Maya sat there, hands clenched under the table. She left the meeting with her stomach in knots. That night, she went down to the cafeteria later than usual, and when Marcus slid the plate over, she didn't uncover it. Not tonight, she said. Marcus frowned. Rough day, no? Maya rubbed her face. Marcus, this thing with the plate with every night. We can't keep doing this. He went very still. Why not? Because people talk. Because Alcorn used it against me today in a meeting in front of the whole department to make me look like I don't even know what. She stood from the stool. I'm the head of this ER. It took me my whole life to get here. Everything I am, everything I built, rests on nobody being able to say I can't do it alone. And coming down here every night to let you feed me feels like admitting I can't. It's a weakness, Marcus, and in that hospital, weakness gets used against you. Marcus listened without interrupting. When she finished, he wiped down the counter slowly, thinking. You think letting yourself be cared for is a weakness? He asked finally. It is, in there. Marcus set down the towel. I watch people walk into this hospital broken every day. People who held on alone until they couldn't anymore. And you know what they all have in common? They arrived too late. Because holding on alone isn't strength, it's just the slowest way to fall apart. He came around the counter and stood facing her. What you do for this whole hospital 18 hours a day, that's strength. Letting somebody keep a plate warm for you once a day doesn't make you weak. It makes you smart. It's the only reason you're still standing. Alcorn won't see it that way. Alcorn doesn't care about you. I do. He said it plainly like a diagnosis, and then seemed to catch himself but didn't take it back. I said it. So be it. I care about you, doctor, and have for weeks. I'm not telling you to complicate your life. I'm telling you because you're walking around thinking all there is down here is a plate of food, and there's more than that, and you know it. Marcus, I can't deal with this right now. I'm not asking you for anything. He raised his hands. I'm giving you the truth so you can decide with all the facts, same way you'd walk a patient through a diagnosis. I'm not going to hide it from you. And what's the diagnosis, Dr. Doyle? She said with a bitter laugh. That you're not alone, no matter how hard you try to be. Marcus took a step toward her. And it works out well for Alcorn if you keep believing otherwise that being alone is the same as being strong, because that's how he squeezes you dry without anybody noticing. Think about it. Who benefits from you skipping dinner? The patients? No. A doctor who passes out doesn't save anybody, including herself. Only him. He likes you exhausted and grateful and too worn down to tell him no. Maya had no answer because he was right, and the truth hurt worse than the hunger did. I need to think, she said, and left without eating. She didn't eat that night. She went to bed with an empty stomach and discovered the hollow feeling wasn't about food anymore. It was about him. And Alcorn with one poisonous sentence had made her feel guilty for the one good thing that had happened to her in years. 4 nights later, Marcus was waiting for her in the parking garage, leaning against her car with his hands in his apron pockets. 4 nights, he said. I figured maybe you were sick. But you're not avoiding me. Marcus, it's fine. You can avoid me. That's your right. He didn't move. But say it to face. Don't leave me down there wondering if something happened to you. That much I won't take. Maya gripped her keys tighter. It's not about you. I know it's not. It's about Alcorn, and you're fighting his fight with my plate of rice. Marcus shook his head. He's got you well trained, doctor. Made you believe letting me take care of you costs you something. It has cost me something. In 6 months of eating my cooking, you lost a patient over it. Lost a surgery. A shred of respect. No, she admitted. No. The only thing you lost was the hunger. Marcus stepped back, giving her room. And he wants that back because a starving doctor doesn't argue. I'm going to keep your plate warm whether you come down or not. Not to pressure you. So you know there's one place in this hospital where nobody demands anything of you. When you need it, you know where to find it. He walked back inside and Maya stood alone in the garage with a knot in her throat that no shift had ever put there. The next day, Alcorn tacked on 2 more shifts. Since you clearly have so much spare time, he said, smiling. Maya took them and didn't go down to the cafeteria. She told herself it was the right thing to do. It was Nurse Gloria who finally cornered her 3 nights later in the nurse's station. You look worse than before the nurse told her no sugarcoating it. I'm fine, Gloria. You are not fine. You're green. The woman pressed a hand to her forehead the way you'd check a daughter for a fever. That young man from the cafeteria still keeps your plate, you know that. Covers it every night, sets it on your stool, and dumps it out the next morning. I've seen it with my own eyes. Maya went still. He shouldn't. Well, he does, and doesn't complain about it. Just fixes another one the next day. Gloria looked her dead in the eye. You know how many years I've worked here without one soul keeping a plate for me, honey? A lot. If somebody's keeping you a plate every night and you're throwing it away out of fear of some bully in a lab coat, then you're sick with something worse than low blood sugar. It's complicated. Pride's always complicated. Hunger isn't. The nurse stood. Think about it, but don't think too long. Food gets cold and good people get tired of waiting. And every night, without fail, Marcus kept her plate anyway, because he'd failed to push once before, in time, and this time, whether she came down or not, he wasn't going to fail again. Everything broke open on a rainy night 3 weeks later. Maya had been on her feet for 22 hours. Alcorn had chained her to a double shift and then vanished to handle some errand of his own, leaving the whole floor on her shoulders. She hadn't eaten anything but a coffee and half a sandwich. At 11, when her body was practically screaming for the cafeteria, she made herself stay put. By 11:30, a new resident found her in the hallway. "Doctor, are you all right? You look pale." "I'm fine," Maya said. She wasn't. She knew it a second before the hallway tilted. The blood sugar, the dehydration, the 22 hours, the weeks of bad sleep and worse eating, all of it caught up to her at once. She grabbed for the handrail. The world went white at the edges. Dr. Shi went down in the ER hallway in front of her own patients. It wasn't serious. It was exactly what Marcus had predicted. A person doesn't break all at once. They break slowly. But once they had her on a gurney with an IV in her arm, Maya felt a humiliation so deep it stole her breath. Her, the one who held everyone else up, flat on her back in her own department. And then she heard footsteps pounding down the hallway, footsteps that didn't belong to a doctor, and a voice, the same low, steady voice that had become her one safe place, shouting for the first time in 6 years. "Where is she? Where's Dr. Whitfield?" Marcus Doyle had come up to the ER. He'd never done that before. In all his years there, Marcus had never once left the cafeteria. But that night, when a resident ran downstairs asking for something sweet for a doctor who'd fainted, and said her name, Marcus dropped everything and took the stairs 2 at a time, a covered plate still in his hands. He hadn't even thought to put it down. He walked into the room and saw her on the gurney, pale, an IV line in her arm, and something in his face broke and rebuilt itself in the same second. "Oh, doctor," he said, and came to her without asking anybody's permission. I told you it happened slowly." "Marcus, you can't be here," she whispered, glancing around, nurses, residents, patients, everybody, watching. "Go, please, they're going to talk." "Let them talk." Marcus set the plate on the side table, pulled up a chair, and sat down next to the gurney like he belonged there, like nothing in the world could move him. "I'm not leaving until you eat this. And this time, I'm not taking no for an answer, doctor. Not this time. I didn't faint for no reason. It's low blood sugar. I know what it is. I'm a doctor. I know it's low blood sugar. That's why I brought food and not flowers." He pushed the plate toward her. "Eat, Maya." "How many times did I tell you?" His voice cracked a little, and beneath the scolding, Maya heard fear. "How many times did I tell you this would happen slowly? I said it the first week, and you were stubborn, and I was downstairs keeping your plate warm like a fool while you were up here falling apart." He shut his eyes a second. "A resident called me," he said. Dr. Whitfield collapsed, and I thought I was happening all over again. The exact same story. Maya understood who he was seeing on that gurney, and her throat tightened. "I'm not Michelle," she said softly. "I know you're not." Marcus pressed the spoon into her hand. "That's why I pushed in time this go-round. Eat, Maya, please." He'd never called her by her first name before that moment. "I'm embarrassed," she murmured, eating anyway. "Everyone's watching." "Them watching you eat isn't embarrassing." Marcus moved closer. "What's embarrassing is the other thing, them watching you fall because you wouldn't eat. Besides, they already watched me come up here shouting. This part's the least of it. You're going to lose your job over this. Already thought about it, and I'd rather lose the job than lose you on a gurney." He held her gaze. "Eat. Don't make me say it in front of everybody again. You're impossible. I'm consistent." "Different thing." She let out a weak laugh and took another spoonful. Color started coming back into her face, and there, in front of the entire night shift of the ER, something happened that none of them had ever witnessed. They watched the cook from the cafeteria uncover a plate with shaking hands and hold it out to the toughest doctor in the hospital. They watched Dr. Whitfield, the one who never cried, who never faltered, take the spoon with her free hand and eat slowly, tears rolling down her face. They watched him wipe one away with his thumb, shameless, and say, "Easy, don't choke." And everyone understood in that silence exactly what this was. Nobody needed it explained. Nurse Gloria, 30 years on that floor, and she'd seen it all. Walked over and put a hand on Marcus's shoulder. "About time somebody made her," she said and smiled. "We've been watching her not eat for years." "Years?" Marcus asked. "Years." Gloria looked at Maya with scolding affection. "Ever since she was a resident. We've told her everything, eat, rest, don't carry it all yourself. Never listen to us. She looks at you, though. Gloria clicked her tongue. Sometimes a person needs to hear it from the right one. I'm not deaf, Gloria Maya protested from the gurney. No, sweetheart, but you're stubborn. The nurse tucked the blanket around her. Finish your soup. Marcus's whole attention stayed on Maya, on her finishing the plate, on the color returning to her face. When she finally set down the spoon with the plate empty, she looked up at him. So much for hiding this, huh? She said with a tired laugh. Doctor, I just ran through the ER shouting your name with a plate of food in my hand. Marcus smiled too. Pretty sure the hiding part ended a while back. You called me Maya. Slipped out. I liked it. She found his hand on the blanket. Say it again, Maya, he said, lowering his voice so it was just for the two of them, even with half the floor watching. Don't do this to me again. My heart can't take two scares like that. I'll eat, she said, if you promise to stop scaring me. Not signing that deal. I'm always going to be scared. Comes with the territory. And what else comes with the territory? Hot dinner every night. A free lecture daily. And somebody who remembers your name even when this hospital forgets it. Marcus squeezed her hand. Not much, but it's what I've got. It's more than anybody's ever offered me. Then you got a bargain. He smiled at her. Now rest. I'm staying till they discharge you, even if they throw me out 3 times. They will throw you out. Let them. I'm stubborn, remember? I remember. Maya closed her eyes and drifted off, knowing at last there was someone watching over her sleep. What neither of them knew was that Alcorn, back from his errand, was watching from the doorway, and there was no warmth in his face. There was calculation. The final test came 9 days later, and it arrived with sirens. A charter bus overturned on the interstate at the edge of town, and in an instant the ER faced the thing every emergency department fears most. 23 patients at once, ambulances lined up outside, blood, screaming, families arriving barefoot in the middle of the night. And at the center of the chaos, running it with a calm nobody else in the building possessed, was Dr. Maya Whitfield. Triage at the door. Reds go straight to trauma, she shouted, moving between gurneys. I need 2 ORs ready now. You with the leg pressure now. Move. Doctor, I don't have the staff. A pale resident called out. You do. Maya was already at another patient's chest. Breathe. You take the yellows, I take the reds. Nobody runs. The one who runs makes mistakes. Understand me? Nobody runs. And the head injury, that one's mine. Get me O-neg and don't ask. Just do it. She turned to a nurse. Gloria, how many more are coming? 4 more en route, honey. Then we clear Trauma Bay in 10 minutes or we don't fit them. Everybody with me, move. It went on for hours like that, her at the center, voice, steady hands, sure ordering the chaos with the same calm Marcus brought to a kitchen at rush hour. She saved lives that night, one after another, and every terrified resident who stood next to her left a little less terrified. She was, without question, the best doctor in the building, and that night the whole building saw it. Alcorn directed from a distance, giving orders nobody listened to anymore because everybody had already figured out who to follow. And for a man like him, that weighed heavier than any tragedy. At 5 in the morning, once the worst of it had passed, Maya leaned against a wall for a second, hands shaking. 9 hours straight, and one body on the table that had already been gone before she started. Whitfield Alcorn said walking up, and even then, even after all of it, he found a way to twist the knife. Good work. But there are still reports families to notify, and I want you covering the morning since Torres isn't in. Don't sit down. This isn't over. Maya looked at him. 9 hours, an empty body under her hands, and this man once again asking the impossible, with a smile certain she'd never say no, because she never had. She opened her mouth to say yes, because that's what she always said, and then from the far end of the hallway, cutting through the noise of the ER, came a voice. Doctor. Everyone turned. Down the long corridor, past the gurneys and the waiting families, came Marcus Doyle, in his white apron, a covered plate in his hands. He'd crossed the entire hospital from the basement to the heart of the ER at 5 in the morning without anybody calling him. He stopped directly in front of her, in front of Alcorn, in front of the whole shift. It's 5 in the morning and you haven't eaten since yesterday, Marcus said in that same low, steady voice from the very first night. I know because I know you. Eat before you take one more step. Eat. We're in the middle of a mass casualty event, Alcorn cut in. The cook has no business being up here. Leave before I call security. Marcus didn't even look at him. He uncovered the plate soup, still steaming in the cold hallway air, and set it in her hands, closing his fingers over hers. Call whoever you want, he told Alcorn, then, without letting go of her. But this woman carried your hospital on her back all night while you gave orders from the sidelines. She saved more lives in 9 hours than you've saved in a year of signing paperwork, and the only thing she's had is air. So no, doctor, she's not covering the morning. She's going to sit down, eat this soup, and go home to sleep, because a person doesn't break all at once. He looked at Maya. They break slowly. And I'm not letting that happen to her. Do you know who you're talking to? Alcorn said, red in the face. I'm the chief resident. You're a kitchen employee. One word from me and you're out of a job tomorrow. Take my job, Marcus said, not raising his voice. I'll find another. Cooks are needed everywhere. What you're going to be missing the day you fall apart is somebody willing to cross a hospital with a plate for you. And with the way you treat Doctor, I promise you nobody's going to keep anything warm for you. A young resident who'd spent the whole night following Maya's lead stepped forward. I didn't see Dr. Whitfield refuse anything, he said. I just saw her save our whole shift. That's what I saw. Same here, said another nurse. And me, said Gloria, arms crossed. 30 years I've worked here, doctor. I've seen plenty like you come through. They all leave. The ones who stay are the ones who keep the plate warm. Alcorn looked around, searching for a single ally, and found none. The hallway had gone completely silent. Nobody moved toward security. Nobody moved for him. And Maya, standing there with a warm plate in her hands and every eye in the hallway on her, understood that this was the moment that she'd spent her whole life believing letting herself be cared for was giving up, when really it was the one brave thing she'd never let herself do. She looked at Alcorn. I'm not covering the morning, she said, and her voice didn't shake. You've spent 2 years wringing me dry with the word patience, and tonight I nearly became one myself. It's over. I'm going to eat, I'm going to sleep, and tomorrow I'm talking to administration about how shifts get assigned in this department. Because a chief who breaks his doctors isn't taking care of anybody. Alcorn opened his mouth, closed it again, looked around and found the one thing a man like him fears most, a hallway full of people who weren't afraid of him anymore. Without a word, he turned and walked out. And with him went 2 years of fear Maya hadn't even realized she'd been carrying. Gloria was the first to speak. Well, she said, dusting off her hands, now that the doctor's finally having her dinner, the rest of you get back to work. Show's over. It wasn't a show, Nurse Gloria Marcus said. Sure it was, honey. Best one we've had in years. The nurse winked at him. And it was about time. Take her to eat before she falls over again. The residents drifted off with small smiles, and one passing by told Maya quietly, Thanks for the shift thing, doctor. Been years since anybody told him no around here. Should have told him a long time ago, she answered. Important thing is you told him. The young man glanced at Marcus. And good soup, Chief. Smells amazing from here. I'll save you some, Marcus said, not letting go of Maya. You save him some and give me leftovers, she protested weakly. I give you the good stuff. He gives leftovers. Marcus tucked the blanket over her knees. Don't get jealous before you've even eaten. I'm not jealous, I'm starving. Finally admits it. Marcus guided her to a chair. That doctor is a full diagnosis. She sat at last and took a spoonful of the soup. Warm, salted tasting, like someone who'd thought about her, same as that very first night. She looked up at him, eyes wet, a smile trembling somewhere between crying and laughing. You crossed the whole hospital, she said. I'd cross more, Marcus answered, but I'd rather not have to. I'd rather you just ate without me needing to come running every time. And how do you propose we manage that Mr. Doyle? He shrugged that familiar crease between his brows, the one she loved by now. I don't know. Maybe you could have dinner with company every night, somebody who remembers you exist, and that somebody knows exactly what he's signing up for. Maya took another spoonful. I work 12 hours, sometimes 14. I come home in a bad mood. I can't cook, and I just got into it with my boss in front of the entire hospital. That somebody spent 6 months watching you show up in a bad mood and still kept your plate warm anyway. Marcus crouched down beside the chair to meet her eyes. I know exactly what I'm signing up for, Maya. Have since the first night. I was just waiting for you to catch up. Are you out of your mind? A little bit's required, loving you. He tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. That's a yes. It's a finish your dinner and then we'll talk. In your language, that's a yes. Marcus smiled. I'm starting to translate you already. Don't get ahead of yourself. Not getting ahead, just waiting. Different thing. He took the empty plate from her hands. I've waited 6 years for the right moment to push somebody. I'm not going to rush it now, and if it takes a while, I'll just keep your plate warm till you're ready. He stood. Come down tomorrow, 11 o'clock. I'll be there. Like always, she repeated, and this time the words didn't sound like habit. They sounded like a promise. Months later, anyone who happened to wander through the cafeteria kitchen at 3 in the morning would have found a strange, warm little scene. A table set for two plates, the head of the ER and the hospital cook having dinner together at the end of a shift. Maya had talked to administration. Shifts were split differently now, and not one doctor in that department had fainted in a hallway from skipping meals since. Alcorn requested a transfer to another hospital. One of those late nights with both plates empty between them, Marcus looked at her and said, I have a complaint, doctor. Now what did I do? You had dinner without me yesterday. The boys told on you. You ate a sandwich standing by the x-ray machines. It was a brutal shift. They're all brutal. That's the deal. Marcus stacked the plates. You promised you'd stop eating standing up. And you promised to stop scaring so easy. You're not keeping your end either. Never agreed to that deal. I've got a good memory. He poured her more water. Besides, I don't scare easy. I worry. Different thing. How's it different? Scared is thinking I might lose you. Worried is knowing I'll take care of you regardless. Marcus shrugged. I just worry now. You cured me of the scared part the day you finally let yourself be cared for. Maya found his hand across the steel table. You know what's strange, she said. I used to think resting meant abandoning my patients, and it turns out I'm a better doctor than I've ever been. I sleep, I eat, my hands are steadier. It's not strange, it's what I told you that first night. Marcus squeezed her fingers. A well-cared-for doctor saves more people. All I did was feed you dinner until you believed it. And every night after that, when Maya came downstairs, she never found just one plate waiting under the towel anymore. She found two, because some nights she got there first tired and kept his warm for him so that neither of them ever had dinner alone again. They'd started out as one person pushing and another person just enduring. Now they were two people keeping each other's plate warm. Two people who remembered. Two people who took care of one another. And that in the end turned out to be the hardest and simplest recipe in the world. Letting somebody keep a plate warm for you and learning to keep theirs warm right back.